Hey guys, this is Stephanie with Empower Physical Therapy, and today we have Kayla with Genesis Physical Therapy, and I'm so excited to interview her because it's a topic that we don't really learn a lot about. A lot of doctors don't really know what women's health physical therapy does. A lot of people don't know what physical therapy does, and as a woman, we need to know because there's a lot that we can do that is just not like talked about. So I'm so excited. So, Kayla, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Well, I am a pelvic floor physical therapy therapist, and I am from the Dallas area. So, born and raised here. I graduated in 2020, so in the middle of the pandemic. And then initially I actually started in home health peds because that was kind of the only thing hiring. And then eventually I started shadowing pelvic PT. And honestly, in PT school, I didn't feel like I had enough exposure to it. I didn't really understand what it was until I started shadowing, and I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do.
Zero exposure to it in PT school. But granted, I've been out for like 20 years, but zero. Like there was no like classes talked
Yeah.
about at all in PT school.
Yeah. I think we had maybe like a day
Yeah,
of it. And that was it.
even a day. I don't
Yeah.
even think it was a thing. I really have only learned a lot about it in the last like 5 years, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like this is needed.
It all makes sense. Yeah.
All makes sense. So what tell us a little bit more about like why you got into women's health because you saw it
Yeah.
and it's like, oh my gosh, this is me. What was it about women's health that you loved?
And so I actually had my own pelvic floor stuff. So I back in my CrossFit days, I was leaking with exercise. And of course, my OB was just like, yeah, just do Kegels. And that completely made it worse.
Yeah,
And so I was like,
I do
okay,
know that.
yeah.
Kegels, when they tell you to do Kegels, it's probably not going to work. It's actually probably going to make it
Probably
worse.
gonna be worse. Yeah, exactly. And so eventually, I mean, I didn't really know what to do about it until now. And so, um, and then just growing up too, I would hear my grandma and my aunts be like, "Don't laugh too hard because you're gonna pee on yourself," and things like that.
This
And
is just what happens as you get older. I love
yeah,
that. Oh my God, I want to hit a doctor when they tell me that.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so it's just like all these things that I'm like, no, like there's something that we can do about it. And I have a passion for community advocation and education. And so I
Yeah.
just love being able to educate my patients, and then they're educating all their friends and family.
Yeah.
Genesis, like most of the therapists on our team have a pretty high social media presence. And so we're constantly advocating and educating on there as well. And so it's just a consistent learning experience. You're just constantly learning as you go.
Yeah, no, I love that. Like our business is similar in the sense of really just trying to educate people on what they can do to really avoid the surgeries and to be off those medications. And even if you've had so many treatments that haven't worked, it's because they're not giving you the right education. And there's so much false information out there. It is crazy. And most of the time people look at like, where they hurt. I'm like, oh, that's not, that could be where it hurts. That's not often where the source of the problem's coming from. So I mean,
Yeah,
it's similar. This is a very, similar niche as well. So
yeah.
tell me a little bit about Genesis Physical Therapy and like how it got started, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So Dr. Becky Allen is the one who started Genesis PT. And so we are 2 years old, but now we have, I want to say, 5 locations. So we have our Fort Worth office. I'm here in East Dallas or East and South Dallas.
Mhm.
Then we have our North Dallas office, one in Addison inside the Nest, and then one in Richardson inside of Aspen House mental health therapy.
Wow.
And so yeah, and so it's female run, and she has just cultivated such a healthy relationship within the business, and it's so good. Like she is, for women, just it's so good. She uh yeah, just promotes all the holistic things, and is and it's just such a interesting business model because I feel like growing up I was exposed to, like insurance, and we're out of network, and all of that has been a game changer. And it's really truly for the patients and not for
Yes.
anything else.
No, it's I mean, your model is very similar to our model, and it was kind of out of the same thing. I'm sure she went through the same thing I went through, of just like being completely burned out, frustrated that
Yeah.
you actually really couldn't take care of the clients. And like I would get so mad that, here they are on their, 15th visit, and I'm like, how did I not pick up on this? Well, I didn't pick up on it because I had at least one other patient, if not two sometimes, as we're overlapping, because we're the first round are done and now the second round are coming and now the third round are coming, and it just gets to be like next to impossible, not to mention the paperwork
Yeah.
that has to go on, and then you're spending all of your extra effort fighting insurance companies.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's frustrating and ridiculous. And this model literally allows us to take care of clients the way they need to be taken care of, which is why we got to be a physical therapist to begin with.
Yeah.
And then just being able to take care of the staff the way we want to take care of the staff, in the sense of they have a great, like, work-life balance, in the sense that they get to do what they love, but they're not completely burned out when they go home.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it makes me sad sometimes when patients are like, well, I'll tell them, okay, like we can try some dry needling today. And they're like, oh, like, is that extra? I'm like, no, like everything
Yeah,
is
it's all
included.
included.
Yeah.
I know.
Like,
Well,
same
you
thing with,
have to, like, if you take insurance, you have to have a la carte things. Otherwise,
yeah.
you can't keep your doors open. And I don't think people really understand that.
Yeah.
Because if you have a private practice now, if you're in the hospitals, forget about it. I mean, like, you're going to spend $400 a visit and you're still going to get crappy care.
Mm,
And they're not going to be people that really care type
yeah.
thing. And so it's like, our healthcare is a mess, but it's way better doing it this way. Like, whatever's needed is needed. It's all included. Like,
Yeah.
that's why we do this. Like, if you need to call us in the middle of the week so you can talk to us because something wasn't quite right, then call us. Like, that's what we're here for. That's how we set this up, so that we have time to do those things.
Exactly. Yeah. Our initial visits are hour and a half long, and then every follow-up is an hour long. I'm like,
Yeah.
I've never had that before.
Yeah. Yeah. We're similar. And we do have 30-minute options too, just so that
Yeah.
there's
Hmm.
ways, that people can come in
Yeah.
if they need, less time, or just from an affordability perspective. So it really
Yeah.
can really hit anyone. Because I can tell you, going down the insurance path and going to see the doctors and going to see other medical professionals, you're going to spend way more money because they're not going to get to the source of what's going on.
Very true. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about like things that you treat, like, because no one knows. I mean, like we already
Mhm.
talked about like Kegels, how they just don't work half the time. It actually makes
Yeah.
things worse. That's the first thing, when you go and Google something, do Kegels. So tell us a little bit about some of the things that you typically treat and see that we wouldn't know about.
Yeah. And so I feel like a good chunk of what we see are things related to like, or I guess more so symptoms of urinary incontinence, urinary frequency, urgency. Constipation is a big one that we see. Postpartum and prenatal care as well. Prolapse, pain with sex. So whether that's either with insertion or throughout. Vaginismus is a big one that we see as well. And any kind of vulvodynia or just like pain in that perineal area as well. And a lot of tailbone pain too. And then we have a few patients who see male patients. And so like any pain with ejaculation or rectal pain, or like if they're cyclers and they have some of that cycle syndrome within that. Yeah. Yeah. So we see quite a bit of stuff, and every now and then we'll get like a knee or someone who has some neck pain. And so it's a pretty interesting approach too. We see a lot of interstitial cystitis, or patients who have been diagnosed with interstitial cystitis, but then we find out it's not that. And then a lot of SI pain, and pelvic pain as well.
Yeah. Because it's all connected. Like, that's what I don't think people don't understand. And I know, like, for us, I just get frustrated because it's like, oh, go to the knee specialist. Oh, well, there's no problem here. Okay, go to the hip specialist. Okay, I'm like, guys, there can be a thoracic component, a back component, a hip component, and like, and it's all connected. And did you even
Yeah.
check the foot as well? Like
Mhm.
it's one big chain. You can't just look at one thing, and
Yeah.
that's all we do. And so there's always a lot of like misdiagnosis. We had someone yesterday come into our office, and it was frozen shoulder, And I mean, I could already see just the way she was sitting. I'm like, oh, this, like, you got something going on in your neck. Do you have
You're-
issues
yeah,
in your thoracic? Oh my God, yes. I'm like, yeah, like this shoulder's not moving because it's not moving back there. This is not a frozen shoulder. And so
yeah,
the doctor gave her like, bar exercise. I'm like, stop, like, just stop. We're going to do these instead. And she's like, oh, I already feel bad. I'm like, I know,
you're
like,
like, I know what you do.
I mean, and I know you guys get the same thing. And
Yeah,
this is why, like, people almost need to make physical therapy as the first stop so that because we
yes,
actually can spend time with you. I don't understand how a doctor can spend 10 minutes with you to come up with a diagnosis. I don't get it.
yeah. It's crazy.
It's
And
totally
like
crazy.
really our most of our work is really teaching people how to breathe properly.
Yeah,
And half of the time that's what changes everything. And they're like, no, wait, what? I'm like, yes, like breathing is gonna change everything.
I know. Yeah, that's awesome. So give us some success stories because I know people love like to hear the stories. They see themselves in those stories. So share some success stories.
Yeah. So I feel like some of my favorites are, are people who have pain with sex. Like one of my patients, they had been married for 7 years and had not been able to have successful intercourse. And a lot of that was from trauma. Like she had traumatic birth, like had to give birth to a stillborn baby. And there was trauma, like sexual abuse in the past and things like that. And so there's just a lot of heaviness in that. And sometimes just recognizing, like, yeah, my body has been through trauma and my body stores that somewhere. And sometimes
Yes.
that happens to be your pelvic floor. And just recognizing, what are some of the triggers, and okay, let's do some breathing to teach the pelvic floor how to relax and move on its own. And so eventually we got to the point after doing some manual therapy, doing some dry needling, internal work, her being compliant with her homework and stuff like that. Then they got pregnant and she had her baby, and things have been great for them. And so that has just been so encouraging to see the big transition for them. Um,
Think that's a big piece that people miss too, because it's a piece that we look at as well. Because I always tell people, you have to get to the source of the problem, and there can be a huge emotional component to that has to be addressed. And you like, as a physical therapist, one that understands, like how the body works and that whole thing, can recognize that there's a component here. Let's dive into this a little bit more. Or even if we can't help you, a lot of times we can navigate people through it, because once when they bring awareness around what's really going on, then they like, oh, okay, I need to work on this. And then there's other times that they're just, I mean, it's so deep ingrained that we have to get into someone that can actually really help them. But we can recognize that, and we can
yeah.
get people to the right place. And then again, it gets down to the same kind of thing. You got to get to the source of what is really going on here.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're just treating symptoms and you're not going to get help. And that's why so many people are so frustrated with their medical system.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And we have so many success stories of women who have vaginal birth after a cesarean. And like that is also another encouraging area that I love to work with, because most of them either they don't have support from their provider, or they just kind of have that fear of like, well, I had a C-section last time, so don't I always have to be a C-section? And it's like, no, like we can go for a natural or a vaginal birth if that's the way you want to go. And so I had a patient who she came to me like at the very end because she was just in really bad pain. And so we got her in, we got to working on all the different things and scar tissue. And she's like, it was almost like having a redemptive birth compared to her first, because it was so fast. She didn't tear, and just all the things that could have gone right did.
Yeah, that's awesome. It just, I mean, and then again, these are the reasons why we got to be a physical therapist, so that we could
Yeah.
provide education, give people hope, and really show people what their bodies can do. I mean, our body has an amazing ability to heal if we give it the right environment and get to the right
Mhm.
person that can really help us. So I love
Yeah.
that. So tell us a little, how can people find you guys?
Yeah, so you can go on to www.genesisptwellness.com. And so there you'll find all of our services. We do in-visit, virtual, and home visits as well. So those are our different options. And then you can contact us through there as well. And then you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. And so my Instagram is at Dr. Kayla _ the pelvic PT. And then our main business one is at Genesis PT Wellness.
That's awesome. And I'll make sure I put some of those, the website down in the comment section as well, so that everyone can easily find you guys. But thank you so much. This is so great. I know it's going to be a huge help for so many people out there, because they just don't even realize like what women's health can actually do. And I'm just glad that we have someone in Dallas, like close to us, that can help our clients.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. This was so good to be here.
Thank you.